Hello, parents. Welcome to the Masterful Parenting Podcast. I'm Ann Alvarez, parent coach, school counselor, and mom of two. Do you struggle with your relationship with your kids because you carry childhood pain? Do you get triggered by your child's behavior, become irrational, and maybe even yell at your children? Maybe you want to be a better parent, but you don't know how. Instead of repeating old patterns, you want to heal your pain, become more aware of your child's needs, feel connected to your kids and learn the tools to communicate better so you can truly enjoy your parenting. If you are ready to heal your childhood pain, raise healthy, connected, and happy kids, and end the cycle of parenting with pain, then join me. Our kids deserve it, and we can do this. Let's go. Hello, parents. Welcome to the Masterful Parenting Podcast and Show. I'm so excited today because we have a returning guest. His name is Christopher Mahan, and he is the author of Parental Leadership: 7 Principles to Lead Your Teen in the Digital Age. Welcome, Chris. Welcome back. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining
No,
today.
that's great. No, it was the last one was good. This one's going to be great, and I appreciate you having me back on.
I'm so happy we're going to be talking about teenagers and work. So
Yes.
let's get right into it. Okay, so
All
my
right.
first question is, why do you feel so many teens and even young adults are afraid of getting a job or even growing up?
This is something that's been happening for a couple decades as parents have been doing more for their kids and letting their kids do less for themselves. We now have an epidemic on our hands when it comes to young people wanting to go to work or afraid to do something on their own. And this is a problem that I've been seeing for the last decade. I talk about it in my book, and I see it every day with the kids that I work with, the parents that I work with. And essentially, what it comes down to is this: parents have taught their children to be afraid of making their own choices. So there's no autonomy for their kids. They cannot self advocate for themselves. When it comes time to do something as a young adult, such as applying for a job, looking at schools, or even just thinking about taking the next general life steps of getting a license for your car to drive, things like that, young people are scared. And I don't mean like 14, 15. I'm talking 18, 19, 20, 22, 25 year olds. Many of them are afraid to take that next natural step into adulthood. And what has happened is parents have coddled them for so many years that now that they're older and parents are saying, wait a minute, you got to go get a job, you got to go find something to do, you got to get out of the house. They have not taught their young people how to do this from day one. And all of
Mm,
a sudden they say, well, now you got to go. You're 18. I want you out. You're 22. What are you going to do? I'm tired of paying for your bills. You got to pay for your own phone.
mm,
So what's happened is the fear of the unknown has taken over for young people because so often in the past, their parents have been the one to step up for them, speak for them, do for them. I've actually had parents go to job interviews with their 18, 19, or 20-year-old and try and advocate to a supervisor or an HR person to hire their kid, and the kid's sitting right there. I'm like, you can't do that. This is why we have so many stereotypes, negative stereotypes for young people today when it comes to working. And then when the young people get frustrated, the parents don't get mad at themselves or their kid. They get mad at the workplace. They get mad at the supervisor. They get mad at the expectations the society has for young people. It's not fair to the young person. It makes them feel worthless. It makes
mhm.
them feel like they can't do something on their own. And it enables the parent to continue this cycle of hovering. I know there's a lot
Right.
of words that we call this, whether it's what is it, uh, snowplow parenting or helicopter parenting, or
Yeah.
there's all these little nuances every day that we call it. But basically, parents have to step off. They have to allow their children to feel the pain to move forward. They have to allow them to make mistakes to learn to move forward. And this is something that my generation had to do. I know that young people hate hearing that. Well, in your day, it was fine. But really, we did have to do things that weren't always fun, that were a little scary, but we had to learn that we could do it. And in a psychological term, this would be like self-efficacy, which is different than self-confidence. And we have not allowed children to build their innate feeling of self-efficacy, meaning if there's a problem, I can fix it. If there's an obstacle, I can figure a way around it. Parents have been in there, playing that go between for so long that now young people are really a pain in the butt in the workplace. And this is hurting them and it's hurting our future workforce throughout the United States, probably also in Canada and throughout Europe, because this is a global problem, not just here in the States.
Okay, so I'm curious. I hear everything you're saying. I understand um, parent fear, but I'm wondering, what do you think? Where is this parent fear coming from? Is this from COVID? Like, are people
No,
more afraid because of COVID,
no.
or is this a something that has been going on for a while?
This has been going on before COVID was even a thing. This is something I've been seeing for well over 10 years. And I worked with young people directly well before COVID. This is a problem that's been going on for decades. We can make COVID an excuse. We can say that that's a reason for it, but it's not the case. COVID made things more visible because everybody was, confined for so long and at home and different things. And then the fear that COVID created added to this problem, but the problem was already there well before COVID. And
Okay.
in fact, this problem has been going on for so long that I have a whole list of stereotypes prior to COVID, negative stereotypes about young people. And if you look at the parenting behaviors for the last 15, 20 years, maybe 25 years, you can see that COVID just made things more available to understand what's going on, but it's always been there. Um, I would like to think it was just the last couple of years, but this has been a problem that's been festering for a very long time. So these kids that are now 20, 22, 23, they've been allowed to have this behavior on them with their parents when they were 4, 5, 6, coming up through elementary school, coming up through sports leagues, coming up through high school. So no, COVID did not start this problem at all.
Okay. I think it's really important for parents to understand that when we overdo for our children, they have learned helplessness. They're
Yes,
like, somebody else is going to do it. I don't have to do it. And then the other part is that we are actually affecting their self-esteem because we're giving them the message that they can't do it. And so we have to step in and do it for them. And that is so damaging, right? They're
100%.
actually damaging their children by
Yeah.
overdoing and not allowing our kids to grow up, right?
Yes,
That
yes.
and and yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt you. Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, like, I think we have to do it step by step in the stages that they're ready for. Like even like toddler, okay, they can dress themselves now. Yeah, they can choose their own clothes. Yeah, they can decide what they want to bring for lunch. Like we have to do it in stages, right?
Right.
And continue that, continue letting go. Because our job is not to contain them. Our job is to help them to grow up, right?
Yes. And Vygotsky was great in that with his childhood development idea with scaffolding. And I talk about this quite a bit. I talk about it in the book. I talk about it in my podcast. Scaffolding was his way. He and Piaget kind of had some ideas that were very similar, but Vygotsky was all about you teach them a little bit, let them do their thing, step back, go to the next level, do their thing, step back. And as they progressively go up, like the scaffold, they're learning. And as they're learning, they're building self-confidence. They're building the ability to think and problem solve and fix things
Yes.
on their own. What you just said is 100% true. When we do everything for our kids, we are damaging their innate ability to think. And there's a big push right now with free play and how that's been taken away. Free
Mhm.
play is another big thing, and it's a great learning tool. We took that away years ago.
Mhm.
Dr. Peter Gray talks about it. It's also another great book, The Anxious Generation. It's a great book if you can get that. And we have taught our children that they're not capable
Yes.
because we as parents want to do everything. Maybe we have our own insecurities, maybe we have our own issues we're trying to overcome from our own childhood. Who knows? Trauma runs very deep with a lot of different areas. But the thing is, we're teaching our children to be a victim. We're
Yeah.
teaching them that can't is their first response when something doesn't go their way.
Yeah.
When I work with young people, the two things I tell them, you cannot say can't or I can't, and you cannot say disability because
Mhm.
everyone has abilities of some kind. It's just a matter of taking what you have and making it a strength. When you
Right.
use those as a crutch or a way to make excuses, they will never advance. I know
Right.
35-year-olds that still will not find a job. And their parents in their 70s are like, what am I going to do with my kid? He's 35 years old. Well, you created this mess.
Yeah.
You created this mindset, this fixed mindset in your child at 14, 15, 20, 25, that when there's a problem, you're going to fix it. You
Exactly.
know,
Exactly.
we see this with kids of all backgrounds. We see it with uh, kids that have great potential,
Hmm.
but because of this fixed mindset and this victim mentality,
Hmm.
they stop, and
Yeah.
someone comes in and fixes it for them, and they knows what's
Yeah.
going to happen. And now we have a problem because parents are tired of always fixing, and now they put all the blame on their kid, whatever age that person may be, 25, 15, 30, whatever it is. And now you have a conflict problem with the
Yes.
parents and the young person. So that's a whole nother issue to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I think I always remember Dr. Phil saying spoiling is the most incessant form of child abuse. That always
Absolutely.
stuck with me because we're spoiling our kids when we're doing everything for them, right? We're not
Everything.
allowing them to grow. So, oh, I love
Yeah.
it. Okay.
And
Number two,
growth is very, very important. They have to
I
have
know.
growth. If you're not growing, you're dying. You got to have growth.
Uh, exactly. Exactly. Okay. What can parents do to help prepare their teen for the workforce?
Perfect. I love that question. I talk about this in the book as well. And people will say, well, my kid's too young to start working. My kid is afraid of people. My kid has social anxiety. Again, they label all these things. I think we
Mhm.
talked about this in the last podcast.
Yes.
I have a whole chapter on why we don't label, but these parents will build and build and build this storyline of why their kid can't do something. So what I tell them is at any age, if your kid can speak, can pick something up, can help, they can volunteer. You can put your children into volunteering situations with you, whether it's through a church, their school, create anything to help them learn these skills, these transferable skills of talking to other people, looking
Mhm.
people in the eye, having that confidence of knowing that they can complete a task or work with a group. One of the big problems with young people today is I don't like people. People scare me. Well, when that happens, the parent immediately says, my daughter can't work around people. My daughter has social anxiety. So they're continuing this belief. When you get your young people into volunteering, they are working with new people, they're working in a group, they're completing a task in
Yeah.
the best way, the very, very best way to get the endorphins going, to feel good about yourself and to get out of this depressive state is to help others through service. I
Yes.
talk about this all the time in my leadership talks to young people. In my leaders acronym, the S is service, and I talk about volunteering. This is
Great.
so important because it shows them that, oh, I can take these glasses and clean them just right and help people see whatever silly thing it may be.
Yeah.
But through service, through volunteering, you're teaching your kids through the scaffolding method and through self advocating for themselves and to helping other people and contributing, which is huge. As social creatures, we have to contribute, and through growth because they're learning how to do things incrementally. That's also important. You're teaching them these skills so when they go into a classroom, when they go into a job setting, they already know that they can do something because they've been
Right.
doing it for years. That's how you help them.
Yeah. I'm 100% in agreement. I think parents need to understand that when you're working through mental health, service actually helps mental health because it gets you out of your head and it
Hmm.
gets you involved in your life, right? The worst thing for
100%.
mental health is isolation. The worst thing
Very
is,
much so.
right? Is just not getting engaged in life, feeding into the anxiety, right?
And
So,
that's what parents are doing when they say, "Oh, here, little Johnny, here's your phone or here's your iPad," and
mhm,
they go off into their room and they become isolated. They're not learning social skills. They're not
right.
learning coping skills. They're not learning how to deal with other people. So they become fearful of normal everyday life experiences. And this is hurting not just the family dynamic because it causes stress within the family itself, but it's hurting millions of people that would be going into the workforce, and not just the workforce, even just our society in general. How do you deal with people? How do you cope with problems? We not to get into this subject, but we talk about the mind of a school shooter or the mind of a potential assassin, and they're all
Mhm.
under 25 years old. They all have a lot of the same traits and characteristics. But if you back up and go a little further up the river and see where this all started, you can see that this has been coming for years and years and years and years. So these very simple things of just
Yes.
allowing your children to learn on their own and to grow and experience life, to make mistakes, to grow, make mistakes and grow. This is what builds character.
Yes.
This is what
And
builds their
confidence.
their confidence and their
Yes.
self-resiliency and their self-esteem. And
Hmm.
we have taken that away.
Yeah.
You talk about family trauma, you talk about childhood trauma a lot,
Hmm.
and I think one of the worst things we can do to young people is to take away their sense of self when they never get to know who they are and they never get to experience the joy of overcoming a problem on their own.
Hmm.
That to me is very traumatic.
Yeah.
I think that's a horrible thing we're doing to people.
And I think what you said about exposure, like our job as parents is to expose our kids to lots of different things so that
Hmm.
they can know who they are. If they are in their room gaming 24/7 and they never get out, how do they figure out who they are?
They
They're just
can't.
stuck in this virtual world, right?
It's a almost like an emotional prison because
Hmm.
the idea of going out into the world and talking to people and doing things is so scary because they can't control it. One of the things I talk about too is personal power. Everybody wants a sense of personal power. And when you're doing something for someone all the time, you're not allowing them to experience that and have that sense of autonomy to have
Yeah.
their own sense of personal power. So the gaming becomes that for them. That's why they
Yes.
love to level up. They love to do all these things because they're getting something out of it.
Right.
This is why young people, again, not to go too far into this, but this is why they become, uh, they self-harm. They're looking for some self-control and some power in their life. When you're doing everything for them, even going to job interviews, even telling them, what job you should have.
Hmm.
I work with kids from all different backgrounds and cultures. And one of the things that I've discovered in the last couple of classes I've been teaching is that when you come from say, an Indian culture or a Latin culture or there's certain expectations on those young people based on their culture. So
Right.
I asked a young boy the other day, he's Indian, and he chose computer science over being a doctor because his dad was in computer science. And I
Hmm.
said, "Well, did you really choose that?" He's like, "Well, his quote, in the Indian culture, you do what your parents tell you to do and you like it."
Right.
I thought, wow, that's how. I said, "Do you like computers?" He's like, "Yeah, it's coding. I like it." But I got this sense that if he could have chosen something else, maybe that would have been, but he couldn't. So it got me
Yeah.
thinking, how many young people today are told what you're going to do?
Yeah.
And then if you don't like it, too bad. I mean, can you imagine having a life like that? It'd be terrible.
Our job, like as parents, our job is not controlling and telling our kids what to do. Our job is to foster
Right.
their likes, their interests, their passions, foster them choosing their lives. We don't
Yes.
choose their lives. That's so unhealthy. That is so controlling, right? And I understand the cultural aspect, the pressure, right? I get that. But I just feel we have to reframe in our mind what is good for our kids. And maybe what we want is not good for them, right?
That's
Because they end up in time at times like that when you are so controlled, that's when you end up with depression and mental health
yes.
issues down the road because you never had a choice, you never had a voice, you never got to do what you wanted to do, what was your passion, right?
And
So
those are the things I keep interrupting. I'm so sorry because I'm just excited what you're
it's okay.
saying.
Yeah, yeah.
So yes, and when I work with young people today, I ask them, first thing I ask them is, what is your goal? What is your dream? And I can tell you that for the last 10 years, that answer has always been, I don't know. I've never thought about it. No one's ever asked. I thought, man, what a terrible thing that you're 18, 19 years old and no one's asked you at all what you think you might like to do or what your passions are. That to me is almost like unheard of because when I grew up, all my parents did was allow us to explore ideas and different things, and they never questioned it. At one point, I wanted to be an Indian, because we had horses. At one point, I wanted to be a police officer. At one point, I wanted to play center for the LA Lakers. Not going to
Yeah,
happen. But
yeah,
they allowed me to have this
yeah,
idea of doing things. But what they didn't do was stifle me to think, or anyone in my family, to think about what we could do.
right.
And when you're young, you have all kinds of ideas, but that's how you get the what I call it priming the mind for motivation. You're giving them a spark, a little bit of energy to then go forward. And what we've
Yes.
done to young people for decades now is we've stifled that. We've taken
Mm,
their energy and squashed it. We've taken their ideas and told them they're dumb. We've taken their goals and told them they'll never happen. So
hmm
now that they're of working age, college age, and they don't know how to move forward out
hmm
of fear, out of just not knowing, then we say, well, how come? Why
hmm
aren't you doing this? You should know how to do this. And now there's that anxiety because they feel bad about themselves.
hmm
And it's just a horrible cycle that
Yeah,
starts very, very young.
yeah. That's like one of the number one questions I ask my students is, what is your dream? What do you want to do? What's your passion? If you could be anything you want in the world, what would that be? And then when they tell me, oh, my parents want me to be this or my parents want me to be that, I'm like, hey, it's because your parents aren't living their dream. Your
Correct.
parents aren't living their passion, but you can choose. You can live your passion, right? That's
Yes.
that's
And
the dialogue I have with young people.
that's a great dialogue to have. And like I said, I've been doing it for a long time and I follow what you do and I love what you do because I think you're gonna have a lot of the same mentality when it comes to helping young people grow into who they're supposed to be.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
tell young people that, you know, if if you don't know what your dream or passion is, what do you feel? Do you feel
Right.
like you could do something? And so we have to kind of coax it out of them. And I tell them, I truly believe that we have a dream or passion from day one. We may not know it until we're 18 or 20 or 25 or whatever, but there's something in you that you want to do. My brother knew at age 8 that he wanted to work in movies, 8 years old.
Work
And
where?
I've Yeah, he 8 years old. He knew he wanted to work in film and be
Um,
a monster creator and a special effects guy at 8 years old.
wow.
So I asked him one time, I think I asked him my film book, if you couldn't have done this, what would you have done?
Yeah.
And he's like, I have no idea. This is all this it consumed me. And it did. We grew up, we made movies, we made face casts and all these different things. And because he knew at
Great.
such an early age what he wanted to do. And at 11, I started to figure out what I kind of wanted to do
Yeah.
as far as film and things. And of course, it changed a little bit. And as life got older, or I got older in life, I discovered that I liked helping people. And that's how I
Yes.
discovered psychology and behavioralism, different things.
Yeah.
And so for me, my passion's been always been helping people find their truth, if you will, to find
Mhm.
their goal and to help them get there. I love
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
So when I
We,
hear these kids today, they're so depressed.
If this podcast inspired, blessed, or changed you in any way, I would love for you to share this with your family and friends on your Instagram page and tag me at Masterful Parenting. And join my Masterful Parenting Facebook page or DM me for more parenting support. And I will meet you here real soon. Remember, be relational with your kids and you will see a change. Love to all you parents out there. Let's change the world one parent at a time.